Building the Smart Grid, Algorithms of Entrepreneurship. Interview with Cristina Corchero, episode 59. Welcome to the My Energy 2050 podcast, where we speak to the people building a clean energy system by 2050. I'm your host, Michael LaBelle. This week, we speak with Professor Cristina Corchero, who is the Serra Hunter Professor at the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. She is the founder and chief technology officer at Bamboo Energy. We begin our discussion about her experience taking research and placing it within a startup company. Christina is a great example of a reluctant but dedicated entrepreneur. Her company, Bamboo Energy, is a key component of making the smart energy system work. It is a software platform that communicates with devices in the home or factories and interfaces with the grid to ensure things like the time of day pricing can be accomplished to save users money and help balance the grid. So it's talking to refrigerators, talking to appliances in the home, or maybe big machines in factories, and then communicates that with the grid and understands how to either, for example, heat up a home before the peak period or cool down a home, for example, air conditioning in the summer, before the peak in the demand for electricity begins. Her software interfaces with the electrical system and with the consumer side. Hopefully, over the long term, a much more efficient energy system can be built. Christina's story is special because she is originally a statistician who found love in the energy sector. Okay, I made that love bit up, but still, she found what was the ability to use statistics in the energy sector to solve problems. She's taken her research and brought it out from an academic environment and is now working to scale it up in a commercial environment. We go into detail of why and how she decided to make this change. It's a really interesting discussion. This is a double episode in one because you get to learn how the smart grid works, why energy communities are essential for sustainable energy systems to develop. I was really surprised, actually, to hear some of the information here. And you'll hear an entrepreneurial story of Christina and her bold move to transfer her research to the real world. If you are interested to know what it is taking to make a smart energy system work, then this episode delivers. Because it's going to take a lot of innovation and entrepreneurs to bring new technologies into the energy sector. As we discussed in the last episode last week with Gerard Reed, there are lots of technologies out there that can make a huge difference. Just some of the obstacles to deployment are there, including big companies, and they need to get out of the way and let the innovators act. For me, this episode is special. People like Christina are the people creating a better energy system for us. I want to thank our mutual friend Bartek Kowalski, who was a guest in episode 45. I think I pronounced his name almost right in that episode. For both episodes, we talk about virtual power plants, which serve to balance supply and demand. And in both these episodes, you'll hear firsthand the benefits of decentralized and cooperative energy systems. Overall, after speaking with Christina, I'm more optimistic that we do have the right people and technologies to go zero carbon. But we do need to unleash the pent-up innovation that is ready to go. The intent of the My Energy 2050 podcast is to spread the knowledge about how the energy system can assist our transition towards a greener future. And now for this week's episode. Today, we have Professor Cristina Corchero, who is the Serra Hunter Professor at the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. She is the founder and chief technology officer at Bamboo Energy and also the head of the research group of Energy Systems Analytics. Christina, welcome to the My Energy 2050 podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. First, we have to thank our mutual friend Bartek for putting us in touch. So he's a mutual friend of ours, and he was also on the podcast before. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he's so nice. Yeah. And it was a great opportunity to be there today.
Yeah, no, it's great. But the reason I wanted to talk to you, though, is that really discuss your experience in entrepreneurship. So I'm really interested to talk about Bamboo Energy, but also understand better the software interface, looking at your research and also your work. I would say business work. It's really this interface between the distribution grid and consumers and you really go into the data, and you also develop the interface and have to deal with hardware issues. So I'm very interested to talk about these issues today. But the first question I have is, how did you get involved in energy research?
Whoa, long time ago. In fact, my background is statistics, so I'm a statistician. And when I started my master thesis, I worked with a professor that was involved in all regarding energy markets. He deals with bidding and in that time thermal units, hydro units, and how they should work at the energy markets. And I started there, and then I realized that yeah, I was quite engaged with the subject. So I started my PhD on optimization and modeling for energy systems and energy markets. So this was the start. It was just yeah, because he was there, and it was interesting because the statisticians, I always said we are a tool, and we work in many sectors, and I end up in energy, but it really engaged me, and it's been almost 20 years now. So
Uh-huh. Excellent. Well, right. I mean, this is why I love energy, is just because it's so practical, right? It has the everyday impact, but then we all have our different niches and expertise that we can apply to the energy sector.
yeah, indeed. In fact, it was one of the, I mean, powerful things I found. It was like my background was super useful in the energy side. So it was, I was not engineer, I was not, let's say, energy person at that time, but the background I had was useful, and that was one of the main, yeah, main aspects that I found, yeah, interesting for following up on the on this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm interested because you were inspired and brought into this field by a professor, and then
Yes.
now you're a professor
Yeah.
as well as I, right? And we see this impact we have on our students and their careers as well. I was just wondering, maybe how do you, because you had that experience, how do you deal with your students and those students that are really interested in energy?
Well, in fact, I have brought many of them to my research group. So I think I do this again all the time. As I said, I'm well. I teach in different. I teach also to the engineers and the energy engineers. But when I'm not teaching to them, when I'm on the computer side, computer science side, or on the statistics and data science, which is the name now, side, I try to inspire them, not only by energy for sure. In my case, is energy, but also other different subjects that the ones that they kind of foresee, and to see how the how building up teams with different background, how interdisciplinary teams work is, I would say, the most powerful tool that we have right now for forcing all the challenges that we have in front of us. So, and I try to make them understand that even that they typically at the first moment do not differentiate between megawatt and megawatt hour and do not differentiate between power and energy, which is always the joke I do. They can do things, and their knowledge is important, and they can improve how things are being doing in other sectors, and this is something that I think it's important.
Hmm. And these skills of working in a multidisciplinary team, this is one thing I've learned, yeah, through experience as well. Sometimes it's difficult to work with people with different, we could say, educational background or educational focus. And how do you, maybe there's not a good answer to this, but how do you work in these multidisciplinary teams to communicate with each other? Maybe that'd be a best way to ask.
Yeah, it's super difficult. I mean, I typically my team, my research team, and now in Bamboo also, we typically merge people from the math side, so mathematicians, statistics, data science, and those with the engineers, poor engineers, even I mean, electric engineers, energy engineers, and the, as you said, the background at the end makes us think in a different way when we face a problem. And the first months working together, there should be this misunderstanding all the time, because it's like you are not going to do the things like I'm saying we have to do, and it's only a matter of how we have been taught to face the problem. So it's a different way of thinking, let's say. So I always said that this is the beginning, and it always happened. So it's very difficult that I find a mathematician that joins the group and everything is smooth and nice at the beginning, or the other way around. I mean, it's not a maths people thing. It's when you get into these kind of groups. Now I have a girl that comes from the social science and political side for regulation issues and so on, and it's the same. So we deal with the problems in a different way. So I think this is only a matter of communication, a matter of patience. So at the end, you will converge and you will know how the other works and how you can help the others or join forces. And obviously, it's a matter of interest. So there is people that won't work on this framework. So I have realized also with the years that even that you make it easy, there is people that cannot or is not able to adapt themselves to work with other profiles that are super different to them, and they are more comfortable working in areas that are specifically on their, let's say, way of thinking and doing things and so on, and that's okay. It's not a problem, but there are other people that can adapt themselves, and then you build up these strong teams.
Uh-huh. I think that's an excellent way to put it. Not both in, yeah, there are people that can do this, but also recognizing there's people that can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
think that there is. I mean, or I mean, probably they are able to, but they don't want to. So it's also it's also a decision, and they do not feel or they do not feel comfortable with this situation. And I have feel it myself. So I have feel sometimes persons that were not comfortable discussing some super specific things with a statistician. It was like, okay, I was a statistician 20 years ago, but now I have been working on this for several years. So I have more or less the same knowledge or the same kind of information to make the decision as well as you. But sometimes we are kind of marked by some labels, right? And it's difficult to avoid them.
uh-huh. And is this skill, this awareness, you have this great awareness, I think, of yeah, what people can do professionally in these teams. How does that translate into Bamboo Energy? Because here it's hiring and firing
Yes.
and trying to work with people is really essential, even much more than academia. We kind of get by,
Yeah. Yeah.
who's ever around, we have to learn to live with them. But if you have your own company, you're the founder and chief technology officer. How does this play into it?
I've tried to bring my lessons learned here. So and try to when building up the team. So the first year and a half we have devote most of time to build up a small team for, let's say, building up the product in an industrial way. We have a result of the research, which was not the software that we must put in place, and I've tried to bring these lessons learned when finding or trying to find the right people for joining Bamboo. I, I must say that it's very difficult right now for a technological startup to hire people, because at the end is a high competition in cities like Barcelona or others. There are many opportunities for them. So at the end, you have to engage them. And here, for instance, energy is a good high, because if you find people that is computer scientists, no, but also they somehow feel that they need to do something, and that this is an opportunity for bringing the knowledge to, I mean, energy transition, climate change, or wherever. You can find this engagement, let's say, this added value for the position that you have offered, different than the others, let's say. And I have kind of used this. Uh, and at the end, what I have emphasized a lot is that we are not just programming code, but we are working, as I said, with other people that are working on data science and thinking how to forecast data and how to use it. And we also, in our side, work with commercial people, right? And we have to explain them what we are doing, because they have to sell it. So yeah, it's been a challenge, a different challenge.
Uh-huh. And would we classify Bamboo Energy as a startup, or is
Yeah, it
it
is.
beyond that? Okay.
Is
Uh-huh.
it's a spin-off of the research center and is a startup right now. Yeah.
Okay. And actually, maybe we could talk about that. It was, how did you get it to the point where it was able to be spun off?
Yeah.
That must
In
be a long
fact,
story.
yeah, I will try to short it.
Yes, yes.
No, the idea, I mean, it's kind of funny thing because I'm a researcher and I'm a I that as I'm not an statistician, a pure one, I'm a pure researcher, so a technical one, applied one, but a researcher. And then it was almost 3 years ago. There are some programs that try to go to the research centers and identify the technology that is being developed to see if it's well, potentially transferred to the industry. So it's, yeah, they can try to find these unicorns, right?
Yes.
And there is one program here in Barcelona that is built up by the Mobile World Congress and the Mobile World Capital, which is the investors from this congress. And they do this. So they, well, go around the research centers in Europe and check the technologies that are being developed. And let's try to see if there is something. And they identify bamboo as one opportunity. So that was, let's say, the seed, the beginning. But at that time, I always say, I don't want to make a company. I don't want to make an enterprise. I mean, I'm not interested in that. So we started there is kind of 6 months of training and exploring business case, exploring business model, and see if there is something there or not. And during these 6 months, then I somehow get engaged again. And it's funny because people that know me said, okay, you always are like, you have the necessity of learning all the time. And you are now learning a lot on entrepreneurship in that moment. So is that what have like gathered you? And probably it's true. So when we finished these 6 months, the decision was made, and we were going to build up the startup, and that's it. Yeah.
So you got to this point where in the 6 months you learned about how to do a company. What was that type of training?
Yeah. So what they do is you have a product, right? You have, or even an idea, because there are some of the other colleagues that I had there that they only have the idea. In my case, I have the software developed, what kind of developed, and then what they do is that you have to bring this. You have to think how to bring this really to a business. Okay, so you have to build up at the end. You end with a business model of your product, and with a kind of, yeah, trip, or a decision. So what you are going to do? Okay, I'm going to found or not the company, or you are going to transfer the technology to a company that is already working or wherever, and then you always pitch and do those things, and then decide if they invest on you or not. Okay, so I pass also this second filter. I was one of the selected companies there, but also Energy, which is a investor for European Commission. Well, it's a
Mm-hmm.
public-private investor, uh, European one. They were also interested on bamboo, and at the end, well, we reached the agreement with there, and they were the first investors of bamboo. But you end up with this, yeah, business model. So is you already have the idea on how to sell it, to who you must sell it, which is, yeah, the structure you must build up on your company. What do you need? What resources you need, and all those things that you don't know before.
Uh-huh. So you were, I mean, I could use the word cautious, but you were a bit reluctant, and
Yeah.
I mean, you learned the process, and then you got the confidence through this process, and then it didn't seem such a big risk going forward. Then is that right?
Well, it is. It is a big a big risk, because
Yes.
at the end, you know, you stop what you are doing most of the time, even that you combine them. But at some time, on the beginning, it absorbs your energy at 100%. The other things you do, let's say by business as usual, but your energy is super focused because it's everything new, and there is a risk. I was at some point I was afraid that my group or my activities or my teaching or whatever suffers from this other activity. Luckily, I have a great team with me. It was not myself alone. I was with two other colleagues that I would say not help me, but we are a team that work together, and obviously that makes, let's say, things work. But there is, at the end, there is a risk. But well, somehow I love risks, so it's not it's not an issue.
It sounds perfect. It sounds like it had built up over time, right? And you developed the software,
Yeah,
and then this was like the next natural step to
yeah, it
take.
was. Yeah, in
Uh-huh.
fact, the idea was, I mean, for me as researcher, is the best thing that can happen is that you have done something for almost 6 years, and suddenly this is going to work in the real world, and it's going to really make things change. This is, I mean, in a personal feeling, it's wonderful. So you feel super good because typically you do many things that end up in a closet, right? And having this feeling of trying to bring them to really and not by selling them to the utility that you typically do, but doing yourself. For me, it's, I mean, it's an amazing way of doing it. I don't know if I will repeat this again, but it's being an opportunity for having these feelings of doing research that is yeah, being used, let's say.
No, it's excellent. And actually, I realized we haven't actually explained what bamboo does. But
Yeah.
let's. I have one more question before we get there. And this was actually yeah. The question is, how is it different from research? So you've established, yeah. Maybe I'll just leave it at that. How is it different from doing the startup from the actual just research process itself?
Well, for me, it's kind of funny. When I started this training, the best thing I understand is that when I was doing research, I want to do it perfect, and I want to do it, let's say, one step forward, right? And the best that was in place, and doing everything that the software can do. Okay, so it was, yeah. I was this software was developed in European projects, and I always want to cover all use cases, all technologies, all things, all protocols. All okay. Then when I started Bamboo, first thing was, okay, learning what is an MVP, so minimum viable product. It was like, okay, you have to minimize what you have done to the minimum thing that you can sell, and this minimum thing is the one that should work perfectly. And this was a disruption for me because it was like uh, leaving behind a lot of things interesting and amazing that I have done that were not useful because the industry didn't want them, because it was like it is for 5 years, or in 2, 3, 5 years it would be useful, but not now. And you have to focus in a small and specific thing. So that was first shocking thing. And the next one, I would say that is, even that my research is applied one, I work with the industry, and I always have design and thought on my algorithms and my developments in an applied way. It was research. So if it doesn't work, let's say nothing happens. Obviously happen, but you can deal with it, right? Now it should work. It should work well because someone is paying you on their business for having this software there. And also on the other side, you have bring these people to this adventure, and we are 8 now, and you
Wow.
have like kind of responsibility, even that I have my group, right? But it's different responsibility that you have here. So yes, selling is something more important than before. And as I said, having something that works and interests the industry now is, I would say, the key thing, and the key different thing.
Excellent. And maybe we should actually now discuss what it
What
is
is,
that
right?
bamboo energy does. Yeah, yeah. So, uh-huh.
Okay, bamboo energy is, as I said, sometimes it's a software, right?
Yeah.
So what I would, let's start from the past. So what I do is algorithms for energy management, optimal energy management. So all based on optimization, artificial intelligence, and mathematical models for what I say novel energy systems. So how these other things that we are introducing in the classical energy systems should work. At one point, as I said, now 7 years ago, we started to discuss what the aggregator was. and what an aggregator for the demand side should work. What do they need? What how do they perform? How do they participate in energy markets? So this was a discussion, like philosophical discussion or designing discussion. From this, I take it to my knowledge, and then I started to develop these algorithms that I thought that the aggregator will need. So it's okay, if I'm thinking of an aggregator, what do I need for perform my activity? And that was the development that I did, and it ends up in a set of algorithms that builds up the platform, which is Bamboo, that is able to forecast the flexibility of my demand for tomorrow. So I have a set of assets of demand, consumption, okay, or selves, buildings, industries, so all the consumers. Bamboo is able to forecast the flexibility. And what is the flexibility? Flexibility of the demand at the end is their ability to change their consumption profile. So I always put like an example that is quite easy to understand, that I'm now in the campus, right? And there is a temperature that is, I don't know, 23 degrees or whatever. If I change it 1 degree more or less, probably 90% of the people won't notice this. But what will certainly notice it is the smart meter. So the smart meter will change. And this is what I take advantage for. This is a flexibility. So this kind of changes on our consumption that we can do without affecting the comfort, without affecting the industry production, for instance, and that we can offer them to the energy system. So Bamboo, what is able to is to forecast this flexibility, to build up the bidding that should be done to the flexibility markets that are nowadays open around Europe and also in Spain. And then during the day, when I receive a signal from the TSO nowadays, or from the DSO in the next future, so the distribution system from the system itself, then I know how to send the signal to the devices. So I know how to say the battery, hey, stop charging or start discharging, or I downgrade the temperature, or I switch off a fridge that I know that can switch off for 1 hour, and it won't happen nothing to the food that is inside, for instance, some examples. And this is what Bamboo do. And what our idea is that we want to be a technology. So we want to be the technology that enables any company to become an aggregator. So any company that has, I don't know, energy service companies, retailers. So those companies that already have the assets, already have the consumers, bring these consumers really to the center of the energy system, and enables them to participate and take benefit from the energy markets through their flexibility. And those companies typically don't know how to do this. So the idea of Bamboo is being this technology that enables them to do this new business, let's say, in a kind of with minimum investment, because at the end is on software as a system, so, or platform as a system, as a service, sorry. So is with low investment, you can, yeah, bring this opportunity to your customers.
I think this is so great, Christina. I have so many questions because this is really the heart of what the smart energy system basically. This can I call it a software? Is that the
Yes.
right term to
Yes.
use? Okay, so the software sitting right at the middle and controlling not just controlling but communicating between what the supply side and the demand side, and you're essentially the software provider for other companies that would go out and sell this service.
Yep.
Is that the description?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, the way of implementing it depends on the customer at the end. Okay, we can somehow join forces with the hardware side and go together with the I don't know, inverters, still, or self-consumption solutions, or charging point solutions, or whatever, because they want to aggregate their assets, let's say. Or we have now, for instance, some customers that are retailers, that typically retailers are energy traders. So they do not deal with the electricity. This is something that people do not realize, but the retailers typically, they only deal with money, not with the electricity itself, even that they are an energy company. And and doing this new activity, they have to deal with the electricity itself, and they do not know how. So putting this software in place helps them to do these other things that they are not used to.
These retailers then would be, I mean, it depends on the market, but traditionally the distribution companies, but not owning the
Commercialization
distribution.
companies, yeah,
Optimization companies.
because the distribution companies typically are regulated ones in most of the countries. So we move to the ones that commercialize the energy. Yeah, so that
Okay.
sells it to the end user.
Okay, to the end user. And
Yeah.
those are the companies that are able to play with, I don't know, time of day pricing or
Yes.
hedging, this type of
Yes.
activity.
Yeah.
And yeah. So and the other side of this would be like a virtual power plant too.
Yes,
Is this
that is, but
what?
on the consumption side. Is this definition? So virtual power plant typically is what we have done on the generation side, and now we should move the idea and everything to the consumption side. Yep, to the demand side.
And on this demand side, then, how difficult, because this seems, in my interpretation, impossible, but so this is why I'm glad that you're working on this, is communicating with the different devices like refrigerators, batteries, whatever can be the load shifted a bit and communicated with. How difficult is it to write the software and to develop the systems for this communication?
Yeah, at the end, it depends on the obviously on the size and on the situation. So if we nowadays we can focus on industry, even small, but industry, then tertiary buildings, offices, hospitals, campus, I don't know, schools, wherever, and then households, right? So it's like these three areas. If we start from households, it's super difficult. Okay, here you have to go hand by hand with, as I said, with this hardware manufacturer that is already installing these smart meters, these smart devices that can be easily managed. Okay, because if not, I mean, at the end, it's super disaggregated. So it's difficult to foresee, even that there are companies that are doing this in Europe. I mean, with great success, it's difficult. Okay. Now this is kind of being, so I don't know if solved is the word, but faced through the energy communities. So if we start on thinking that these households or these small end users are joined on an energy community, then suddenly things kind of are easier. Okay, and also are easier for the energy system, because we don't have to forget that there are many people as me that believe that the demand should be in the center, but we haven't done this traditionally. So at the end, you will have this kind of on other side. So transmission system operator, energy market, all these agents that see this as a problem, not as a solution, because it's kind of, wow, it's super disaggregated, it's super difficult to join them, to engage them, to bring them here, to make them understand what they have to do. So it's like, okay, better we avoid this and we do not make trouble. But I mean, I'm super convinced that we are not able to meet the challenges that we have in front of us for 2030 or 2050 without the demand, which is impossible. I mean, it's not putting in place more renewable. This is not only the solution. So we should do it, but it's difficult for sure. When we move to the other two, let's say two sectors that I've said, industry or tertiary building, this is easier because these have been on the last years, let's say that they have learned about energy efficiency. They have learned that they should somehow invest on doing, doing things better. Also, now we have these high prices on electricity, which always help on this at least.
Good for some businesses. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, not really, because people is kind of afraid for investing in anything, but at the end they make. For me, it's important that I've been in the TV or the radio more in the last 4 or 5 months than in my life, and it's not because I'm better. It's because nowadays everyone is talking about energy prices, and that's good. because at the end we need something to make people realize that they have to do something. Well, if it's energy prices, welcome. I mean, at the end, what I need is that this guy on the old industry realizes that she should or he should invest on energy efficiency and energy managing.
Hmm. And I want to go back to the comment about putting demand at the center.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Could we explore that?
Yeah, because typically the demand is a passive thing, right? We are passive consumers. The demand is there. If you think on the energy models, traditional energy models, the demand was the data, was the information that was there, but nothing has to be done here. It's like, okay, it will be 30, 30, okay, will be 25, 25, okay. But it's like something that is there inactive. So it's there and that's it. And we focus a lot on the grids, smart grids. We should make smart grids. We have been working on, and I have been working on this for many years, even more smart and more. And we also focus on the generation, renewables, more renewables, and changing generation, and asking how to manage it and how to incorporate it to the grid and so on, so on, so on. But no one's really focused on the demand side. And it's one half of all this we are talking about.
Yes.
And for me, putting them on the center is really taking care of which is the role that the demand should have and how we teach the demand or how we do this process so that they may realize that they should be active consumers. They should realize when they consume energy, from where, which energy, at which price, obviously, but and that they are an active part of those energy transition. Because if the only thing that we hear about energy transition is avoiding CO2 by means of renewables, or I mean, at the end, the consumer think, okay, then I still doing myself whatever I want, and it's not the way. So, but on the other side, they need to see the benefits. So for me, being in the center is not only, hey, you should do energy efficiency, you should save energy. Hey, there is no gas or whatever, then shut down your heating or your houses. Okay, I mean, okay, but perfect. No, I also want the benefits. So the generation side has benefits for balancing the grid for years. So why I'm not taking advantage of these benefits? So I when I say in the center is obviously for the responsibilities, but also for the benefits. So I should sell my flexibility and I should get money for it because I'm changing my behavior for you, for the energy system. So pay me. And this is something that we have also to learn as consumers. And it's funny because when you go as I go as bamboo to different industries here in Spain or wherever, and I say them, hey, but I'm not only talking about saving money by saving energy, which also, but I'm talking about getting money, getting paid for what you do. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Uh-huh. So the industry is very open to
Well,
this
I won't
idea.
say very open. I would say they can be interested.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Do you think maybe this is a bit out of where we're talking and your expertise, but for example, ETS, emission credit systems, for industry itself, do you think this is prompting them and the increasing price that they have to pay for emissions? Do you think this is prompting them into this more demand side management
Yeah,
area?
I would say that the good thing is that all those policies and frameworks that are being put in place have bring them to this energy awareness. So they know have this they know have the energy on the management board. Okay, and this is the big change. And not only energy companies. I mean, not all companies obviously, but those energy intensive companies, they have now the energy on the table all the time. So that makes easy obviously the going there, even as researcher of us or a startup or whatever, but going them as a to involve them in this new business. Yeah.
Hmm. And then my follow-up questions are areas that I don't understand, so you're gonna have to
Okay,
help me here.
I'll
But I'm
try.
really, I want to kind of get into like how does the software work, and you don't have to give away any secrets. But
Okay.
how, for example, modeling, like you're attempting to model the behavior,
Yes.
being looking forward even to the user behavior, and then you can take the data from the market itself and see how the, for example, time of day pricing will affect that. What kind of data do you need, and how does that work?
Yeah. So we are not, I mean, we are, I think people in the energy sector sometimes is not aware of the huge amount of data that we have and that we do not use a lot. Uh, and that was something that I realized some years ago, and that was what I use. So at the end, we have on Bamboo. What do we use? We use meteo data, so information about the weather itself, obviously, market prices data, CO2 data. Okay, so this is, let's say, the public side one or the system one. And then on the other side, we use the data from our distributed assets. So that might be, for the worst case scenario, only the smart meter information. Okay. For the best one, we have even behind the meter information. So, for instance, temperatures inside the building, or battery state of charge, or the when we deal with charging points, the car state of charge, or whatever. So it depends on what we have, the best would our algorithms perform. And this is something that we explain to our customers. So uh, what if you have, let's say, biggest amount of data, it will all perform better because we have more information. So how the algorithms work at the end is combining all this data, and depending on the asset that we are managing, for sure. So if we have buildings or batteries or electric vehicles or whatever, what we know how to do is to forecast based on historical data and through artificial intelligence algorithms, and those algorithms change depending on the asset that we have in front of us. We are able to foresee the behavior of this asset for the next 24 hours. Okay. And within this forecasting, we also have learned how we can estimate the flexibility that this asset can have. Obviously, if we are talking, for instance, on an industry, this is, I would say, almost 100% fixed by the customer, because the customer is the one that would say, hey, you can stop this on these times or these, or you can, I don't know, when I was talking about the fridge, right? You can, yeah, shut down the fridge for, I don't know, 20 minutes or 1 hour or whatever, but between this hour and this hour, or my production can be moved because this hour and this hour or whatever. So on the industry side, I would say that the uncertainty is lower because it's super determined by the business itself. But we move, for instance, to a hospital, to a campus, or to households. Then it's the idea is that it's kind of automatic, that I can foresee and forecast your behavior and your flexibility, and then play with it, or play or trade with it.
Yes. And how how difficult, and maybe it is difficult, but forecasting human behavior is essentially what
Yeah.
you're doing then partly. Uh, how do you do that? How difficult is that?
Well, I'm not. I mean, it's there are many people in Europe dealing with this, and I think that everyone will agree on when we talk on tertiary buildings, it's pretty easy. They are pretty. Let's say if you know the calendar, it's pretty easy to forecast. Obviously, with a small forecasting error for sure, but it's pretty easy to forecast the behavior of these yeah, buildings. Okay, or what is about offices, I would say, yeah, tertiary hospitals, schools, commercial buildings, all these kind of things is, yeah, it's pretty easy to forecast it for tomorrow. When we move to households, the forecasting error is quite high. And the most important thing is not the forecasting error, because typically if you're forecasting for tomorrow, for instance, and it behaves quite different from yesterday, it is a small error, let's say. The point is that where it disappears. It was
Okay.
like, okay, why you don't say me that you're going on holidays, for
Oh yeah,
instance?
yes.
So it's
Yes.
going to zero. It was like, okay, shit, because there is a big forecasting error. Because, yeah, it's like, okay, I count on your flexibility for tomorrow, and you are not at home. So
Yes.
I would say that this is the most difficult part. And I have talked a lot with many people that is dealing with this. The good point is when you aggregate it. So at the end, I don't really need to know what my neighbor is doing tomorrow, but what, I don't know, 1,000 houses in this
Yeah.
neighborhood are doing, and we compensate one with the other at the end. So when you aggregate everything, it's easier to forecast it than when you go, let's say, super specific to one.
Oh, okay. So this gets back to your point, and then I wanted to follow up was energy communities actually.
Yes.
So, and I know the EU is making a big push on energy
Yeah.
communities in different countries as well. So maybe you could speak to the importance of energy communities within your, yeah, within these parameters for your company.
Yeah. So I would say that the energy communities, I think that would be the tool now that will help us to involve all these small end users, because being part of something is something that is tangible, right? So you feel it, and you somehow have, I don't know, a shared PV, shared photovoltaic, right? A shared renewable there in place that you're sharing with the neighbors, and you somehow make these energy savings, and then you see how everything is going. I think that this is really an easy way, or well, easy is not easy, but a easier way of involving them in all those systems than one per one. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
from this side is super interesting, and also what I have felt is that from the market operators and the grid operators, it's also easier to accept the small demand side, because they have accepted the big one, and also it's interesting from them, but not the small one. But accepting this small one through the energy communities is also easier. It's like, okay, you're telling me that I can focus on the meter of the community somehow, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
for having this, yeah. So and then they see, okay, then that could be interesting for me. So it's from the two sides that I think that we are is a win-win situation. Um, from the consumer side, because being part of something that is already doing things is easier, and is already from the first minute giving benefits is easier. And from the other side, from the system side, it's also easier to think that they are dealing with a community, okay, come on, and not with all small end users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need things at scale, so the
Yeah,
profits are there.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rather than individual households. Okay, and I just we have a few minutes left, but I just want to maybe talk about the research side of things
Hmm.
and the data. I would just maybe ask you kind of expand on your research center and what you're doing there and what people are doing. What, as I understand from the internet, it's really this both hardware and software
Yes,
integration. And you,
yes.
if you could expand on it, I'd
Sure.
appreciate it.
As I said, what I mean, bamboo is a result of that. So what we do is similar things that bamboo. We have experience on optimization. What I learned was, okay, there is a huge amount of data. I know how to do optimization algorithms, so I know how to do management algorithms, but we are not using this amount of data that we have there, and things will work better. And that was like the mainstream of building up the group. I would say some years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we continue doing this. So the idea is, okay, we have information, how we use it to make these new energy systems work better. Okay, and specifically, for instance, we work on energy communities, but thinking inside the energy community. So how we distribute this renewable source that we have installed them, how we distribute if there is the battery, so the usage of the battery, um, and how we forecast the things inside the community and how we manage it. This is a challenge that we have in front of us. We have worked a lot on electric vehicle integration. So we have a great experience on vehicle to grid. And now we are working, and we are working also with the European Commission, with the Joint Research Center, on thinking how we should, let's say, build up, or how we analyze the impact that um, greatest penetration of these technologies would cause on the local energy systems. Because if we go to a transmission level, to a country level, probably has no impact there. But if we move to the field, to the local distribution grids, then we should analyze how it will work and how it will perform there. So we are working on this for the public side. So for as I said, governments and so on, but also for some of the companies that are building up these solutions. We have industrial contracts with them to showing them how to optimally manage this technology there, and integrating with other devices that might be on place. Because, for instance, typically you have a PV installed, and then you install the e-parking, right? The parking for the electric vehicles, and that's it, and you let it there. You are not taking all the benefit that you can have. So the idea is to integrate everything and operate them in a coordinated way, so that I take advantage. And we have shown that this increase, for instance, we have demonstrated, some a year ago more or less, that combining this can increase the renewable usage, so your own renewable usage almost 15%. And obviously you can reduce to the energy bill because you are using more renewables that you are producing, and so on. So the idea is making up algorithms or software that combine the integration of the different devices. And now obviously we are working with new energy vectors, new energy solutions, to see how we should model them, how we can manage them, and how we integrate them with the devices that we have. For instance, there is a project we are working that they are building up new heat pump solutions, and the idea is that, okay, then when I put this heat pump in place, it's not only how the heat pump itself has, obviously it has this management itself, the machine itself, the hardware, but also integrated in all the building system, or the energy system. We should manage it, let's say, in a coordinated way.
So it's more of a, well, in one sense, a more a geographic focus. I mean, everything's a bit of geographic focus, but this is a very micro geographic
Yeah,
focus.
it's at the end it's microgrids somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And so for example, if I have an electric car and I
Yep.
pulled into a neighborhood and I was like, oh, I need some more electricity here, I plug it in, it would actually, the electricity would come from a solar panel
Yes.
nearby, maybe.
Yep. That's the
Mm-hmm.
idea, and that's what we should do, right? Because uh, for instance, we had a funny thing, that many public buildings have invested in PVs, in and installing PVs, but there are some of them, for instance, libraries and others, that open on the afternoon. And it was like, okay, I have a huge amount of PV that is not being used, or at least by me, or no
Yes.
one near me.
Yes.
And it's also, okay, what if we install the battery? What happened? Which is the return of investment, right? So I have to pay the
Yeah.
battery, but when I have, let's say, having it covered by the cost that I have had, can I share this PV with my neighbors? And if I share it, how do they pay me, or how do we manage this share of renewables? Yeah, this is the things that we try to deal with.
Uh-huh. Excellent. Okay, I won't get into that, but that would probably maybe be blockchain technology
There
and other
are,
things.
but not only.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Not only.
The
Mhm.
interesting thing, we are exploring this now. Blockchain has been thought for, and again, for money, so for economic transactions, and we are working on energy transactions. So it's how we combine them, and we are doing this also in bamboo. we are trying to use, there was a platform in place of blockchain. We are trying to use the same technology for sending energy signals, so for activating and deactivating energy things. Because at the end, we cannot install several technologies there, right? So we
Yeah.
should combine forces.
So you start getting credits as energy, like you could have extra energy, a deficit of energy,
And
something
you
like
can
this.
somehow use the same secure information for sending the energy signal to the battery, for instance. Yeah.
Wow, that's great, Christina. Okay, for the sake of time, we'll stop our conversation there. But I'm definitely looking forward to, well, hopefully meeting you in person someday and having
Sure.
a part two. So, okay, Christina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for invitation, and yeah, looking forward to meet you sometime for sure.